Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out this morning. Not quite a beautiful morning yet, but I'm sure it's going to be a great day. We've got a great panel this morning. You're really going to enjoy it. That's why you're here. My name is Jim Schwarzkopf. I'm one of the sponsors for Alliant Private Client Group. We insure highly successful people for their personal risk management needs all over the country. Don't need to hear more from me. I'd like to introduce to you the 1997 GT2 winner, which included a 24-hour Le Mans win, Justin Bell.
Can you hear me? Everyone hear me? Well, welcome. How is everyone feeling pre-coffee or post-coffee? And thanks for making the drive. Before I bring on our guests, I think it's just important to note the significance of Le Mans' 100th anniversary since the start of this amazing epic race is 100 years ago next year. So they're kicking off everything to do with Le Mans this year at Pebble Beach, which is actually extraordinary because, to convince the French, with due respect, that they should celebrate the centenary here in Monterey Bay, California, before they do in France is quite something special. You've also probably seen some of the Le Mans cars. They are extraordinary. Never again will we see such a collection of race-winning Le Mans cars in the history in one place. But also the group we brought together, Pebble Beach is able to curate every time just the most magnificent and legendary guests, and we have them today. So I'm going to bring on first 6 times winner of Le Mans 24 Hours and truly one of the heroes of motorsport, Jackie Ickx. And Jackie, I'll get you to sit here. Synonymous with the Porsche racing era, especially through the 80s and 90s, and also a winner of Le Mans, Jochen Mass. I just hope I'm moving like they do at their age. Here, Jochen, we're going to go here. Titans of racing. Lynn St. James competed at the Le Mans 24 Hours, had a great run going and then some mechanical misfortune, but she's certainly here to represent her experiences. Lynn St. James. Right there. 33 tries at the Le Mans 24 Hours and 4 victories. Henri Pescarola. Very excited to have Henri here. Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, sit there, right there. It's amazing to have them here. I feel like I grew up around these guys. Lynn, of course, you're too young for me to have grown up around you. But I just feel seeing them here out of context at these events is truly special. So let's kick it off. Normally, I'd start something like this by asking a different question to each of you. But I've been thinking, sometimes when you're trying to explain to someone what Le Mans is about and what we do, I'm going to ask each of you in your own words, if someone had never been to Le Mans, Jackie, how would you describe Le Mans to an alien?
Well, I think first of all,
by the way, he has a history of never answering my actual questions. So I'm going to go now. I'll leave and then I'll come back. Okay?
But first of all, I really like to, on behalf of all of us, to thank you to have joined us today. It's quite early, and I think you're very brave. That's a real sign of passion. Well,
Le Mans.
Yes, that's what you said.
Yeah. It's okay. I've got one of these at home. My dad. I know how to deal with it. Sorry. No.
I'm a real admirer of you and your passion, and I'm an admirer of those who are interested by car racing, because these precious moments, Justin, it's an opportunity to be together, and also, beside the fact that we are celebrating the 100 years of Le Mans next year, I think you are part of the success of these sort of meetings, these sort of races. And without the public and without the passion of you coming from different countries, different ways, different states, I think it's very impressive. And I like to repeat all the time that the success of motor racing, it's definitely you. Without you, we have no organizers, no races, no job, whatever. But that's why I call this moment very precious. And I'm really pleased to be surrounded by an expert moderator who is a little bit deaf, obviously. But I'm happy to be surrounded by Jochen, of course, because we have shared a lot of moments in long-distance racing, 10 years roughly. I think it's fantastic to have Lindsay with us because you have caused a lot of problems to Mans in car racing, who is supposed to be a private territory. And of course, Henri, who has a long story through a multi-abilities, Formula One, Formula Two, even Paris-Dakar, and of course, a multi-winner of Le Mans. And to finalize that comment, also, I'd like to remind you that the record holder of Le Mans, it's Tom Christensen, who unfortunately hasn't arrived yet, I would say, but he had the fantastic success of winning Le Mans 9 times.
Yeah.
So he knows that I am always long, but I keep it that way because he didn't want to. It's time to change, huh, if you want to have No? Good. Also, it's an opportunity to tell you that all successes in motor racing, and it's due to the people you never see. In car racing, if you have the right tool and you have a winning car, winning it's easy. And these people, like you in a way, they work, they hide behind the curtain. They do the job at 100% and even more. They are dedicated, they are motivated to what they do. But the drivers pick up the glory and the lights, but most of the time you never see them. And the fascination for these people, it's really very important because clearly it's not only the fact they prepare car nicely, it's also an insurance for life in a way. So they are multifunctioned, but without them, clearly in my opinion, 85% of the job in any type of racing, it's done by people you don't see, but they share with you the same passion for motor racing. And 15% I keep for the drive to finish the job in a way. Well, having said that, no, Justin, what shall I say?
Nothing. Jochen. Jochen, the question was... No. I should just send him on first. Jochen,
it's time for Jochen.
It's time for Jochen, yeah. Le Mans, I mean, it's such a big part of your life, but how would you describe it to someone that hasn't been there? Because we're so used to the world we live in. That's why I wanted to ask that question, that sometimes you forget not everybody has shared the experiences you have. How do you describe it?
Thank God they didn't. No. Le Mans was shaped for me, since I'm sort of a younger racing generation. I came in quite late. Le Mans was shaped for me by the participants, by certain people. And this certain peep sits next to me on the one side. And it's fantastic. Jackie X was a household name. Henri Pescarolo tried many, many times, and he was long time unlucky. And Jackie was so charismatic in Le Mans, and he shaped it in many ways, because he did away first with his Le Mans start, running across the track, jumping into the car. Of course, you couldn't put on your seatbelts anymore. When the seatbelts came in the beginning, we didn't have that. And so he did that, and he proved that it was somehow the end which mattered more than the start. You know, you have to do 24 hours, and you have to make sure that you're there at the end. So he did that wonderfully, and he did it in a very convincing way, especially there's a German driver called Hans Hermann, who was very miffed with his performance when he overtook him sort of in the last few minutes, really, of the 24 hours, and so on. So this was something, you know, which we read in the papers, which we saw on television, and that made the difference. And this made Le Mans an extraordinary event. Of course, we had a very sad event in '55. Needless to say, this was the definite, I mean, the worst ever happening, you know, that so many people lost their lives because of an accident. And when you analyze this accident, you find the reasons why it happened. But we don't want to talk about that and so on. But, you know, so it made, nevertheless, it made Le Mans mystic in many ways, you know, for the absolute top in racing and the absolute minus points as well. And, but it was there, and it was always part of racing for so many decades before, and finally, you know, we ended up having quite a safe Le Mans, and with the help of very good drivers, very charismatic drivers, and now we have 24-hour sprint races, you know, because the cars are so reliable, things like that. So, but I think I'm jumping the gun here. I don't have to talk too much about it before your next question.
No, but with you two, it's great. I have no more questions. I mean, that's exactly right. It is mystical. You go there. So, Lynn, what was it like when you turned up? Just going.
I want to answer your first question, because nobody has.
Yeah. No, because no one has. Yeah. Lynn, I'll give it a shot.
It's about history. At first, it's really about history. You know, you can't, if you don't have a history, you can't make one up. People try. But I think when you have events, and there's only a few in this world, really, whether it's the Olympics, you know, which has an incredible history. So you don't even have to be a sports fan, and yet the world stops when you watch the Olympics. Yeah. In motor racing, you know, Indianapolis 500 certainly has that kind of a history. And in endurance racing, Le Mans is the ultimate. Now, I became a fan of motorsports because of the 24 Hours of Daytona. We knew race cars went around. I'd gone to drag racing, and that's over in 10 seconds, or now 3 seconds. You know, you go to these oval tracks, and I mean, there's great racing out there, but I had never been to a race where cars race for 24 hours and into the night, and there is a mystical thing about that alone, just endurance racing. And then you find out there's this historical event in France, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And so it's that history, it's that pinnacle, it's the top of the chain of whatever it is you're doing. And in this case, if it's endurance racing, it's Le Mans. And then when you do finally get to go there as a fan or as a participant, then there's this huge festival. I mean, it's insane, you know. I mean, it isn't just a motor race. It's actually, it's an incredible festival. And so I think it's just the history. I mean, and I think that's what really separates it. There are other races that last 10 years, 50 years, 20 years, or whatever, but not 100 years now. And even when I first, you know, became a fan, this was in the 70s, so it wasn't that it was that old, it was just that and there's people from all over the world that compete, all types of race cars. So it's extraordinary, and that's what makes it so special.
Thank you, Lynn. You answered it. Henri, 33 times being there, a lot of the time with your own team, you must have loved the race sometimes and hated the race sometimes. talk about the emotions that Le Mans can bring to a driver and a team owner.
You mean about my team?
Yes.
You know, it's something which is quite unusual. You know, when you are a racing driver, the time arrives where you have to stop driving. So I didn't know what I would do. And I was in charge of La Filière Elf, you know, which was a company in France organized by Elf to find new young drivers. And it was going very well. All the very the best young drivers in France and outside of France were coming in La Filière and became very good drivers. But at the end, Elf has been sold and Total bought Elf, and they decided to stop La Filière. So I was in charge of the young drivers, and I was already organizing to enter cars in Le Mans for the young drivers with me as a teammate, you know. And I have been with Sébastien Bourdais, with Franck Lagorce, and so, you know. And suddenly there was no way to continue with Total. So I decided to try to have my own team, which is something which is quite complicated, you know, because you have to find, first of all, the money to do that. So when you have a private team, in France, it was not so easy to find the money to organize a new team. And in fact, we became one of the best teams in Le Mans because we nearly won against Audi and against Peugeot, you know. But Audi was completely upset to be beaten by a small private team, you know, because everybody knew what was Audi budget, you know, which was a huge budget. And they have nearly been beaten by Pescarolo team, you know. So a new regulation came, and it was allowed for everybody to race in Le Mans with a diesel engine. And the problem is that there was no racing diesel engine, you know, except Audi. So they came with a special regulation, technical regulation for the diesel engine. And we discovered that diesel engine had a huge advantage compared to the engine that everybody had in that time in the car, you know. That we call that the equivalence, the technology equivalence between two different regulations in the same classification, you know. So suddenly, after 2005, I nearly won the race with Sébastien Loeb, you know, who was coming in my team to win Le Mans. You know, he was already a six-time world champion in rally. You know, he came in Le Mans to try to win. And after that, suddenly, we became a team no more competitive, you know, because we discovered that the diesel engine, because of the regulation, had about 200 or 250 horses more than us, you know. That means when I was coming a year later on to sponsors, you know, to try to find new budget for the 2006, 7, and so, they discovered that all the private teams were no more competitive, you know. So it was more and more difficult to find budget for that. And at the end, I disappeared because no more sponsor, you know. That was really, really very bad, you know, for the sport and for private team, you know. So I disappeared, that's all, you know. And you will see here a Pescarolo car, you know. It's one of the cars we built in 2007 or 8, something like that, you know, that we sold to a private English team. And now it's in America, you know, and you will see that car on the track tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's not many people have done I mean, dearly departed Alan de Cadenet, Alan went with his own team, eventually tried to go to Le Mans. It's a very hard road to go. But you talk about technology, and I was just thinking, especially I'll start with you, Jochen, when you look at the speeds that the cars achieve now, I mean, you were in the fastest cars on the planet at the time you raced. And now when you stand there, the lap times are shatteringly fast. 24, as you say, it's a 24-hour sprint now. What do you think as a former driver when you look at those performance levels?
I think speed is relative. Speed to me never really appealed to me as much. The speed we can do on the French country road is 420, whatever, and so on. So, obviously with the development of aerodynamics and horsepowers and this and that and tire science and things like that, it's a logic, it's a consequence of it, but it's not something I feel is the key thing for Le Mans. I mean, you have to, for us always, we had to nurse a car for 24 hours. And as I said, there are very few races. We have it in Daytona, we have it here, but then racetracks. And you have on French country roads, it's fantastic. It's very impressive. And so on. So you have these long straights, which, by the way, I felt they were safer than the present situation with too many chicanes in it, because you have more changing sides and God knows what, and we have more accidents in the moment, I think, than we had before. And we had probably bigger accidents because of the speed and the old one, when we had the old Dunlop Brow still, and then we entered this very comfortable, if the car was good, this very comfortable long straight, which was nice. And you were aware of it, of the speed, but it was not something which tickled your emotions as much. Speed, yeah. But everybody can do that. Put your foot down on the straight and go. But, then the rest makes a difference, really. Braking, the sensible braking, the sensible gear change. Later now with all these modern gearboxes, you don't worry about these things. You don't. You can brake very hard. You can, because they have so much downforce and the brakes are so efficient and they're much bigger than what they used to be when we raced. And so it's, a high-speed circuit, which is always the key point. It's what we wanted in the past, in the beginning, just to prove that the cars can go quick and so on. Not for us, but already the decades before, after it came in existence, Le Mans,
I mean, it's also, they always try and restrict racing in some ways, in the name of safety, but the minute they do it, we see it in Formula One, engineering, the brilliance of the engineers, and on the technical side, they just overcome any regulations, and the cars go so fast. The question that my dad always likes to say, okay, this is the next 20 minutes. Dad will always say to other drivers, especially like Tom, and I wish Tom Christensen had been here to counterbalance this, but Dad will always say, back in the day, there were just two of us. We didn't need three drivers. What is the fundamental difference that allowed you guys to race with two drivers? Is it the technology? Is it the downforce? Because if you think about it, two drivers for 24 hours as opposed to three drivers, and a lot more care given to the drivers nowadays. Jackie, what do you think about that era? Was it easier now, or is it harder then?
It's right to say that to have a competitive car and to have in mind the dream of winning Le Mans, you need a team, definitely. When you mention the fact that we were only two, and as Jochen have very well explained, we had the mystery, could the car finish? You have to keep in mind permanently the gear shifts slowly. But I think basically, when you mention today it's a Grand Prix, definitely a 24 is not an endurance race anymore, it's a sprint, a non-stop at 24, and you need three drivers for it. Yes, they have a power assistant steering, power brake assistant. They have air conditioning in the cars and so on. Clearly, it's very demanding. But also, I think, when we speak about Le Mans, I think first of all, you have to say, what is Le Mans? Le Mans, it's 100 years old. It's much the mobility and the development of the automobile early at the end of the 19th century. The mobility has changed everything in our life. You know it. I mean, you can go from one point to the other one, and you can be free. Le Mans was successful during these 100 years because it was used as a development tool for the automobile industry, for the normal cars, for any kind of development from the disc brakes and all these things. It's nice. In a way, I was at the golf. I was at the golf yesterday, and I read the plate. It's on the plaza, where it speaks about a gentleman called Morse in 1915, or was already here with this unbelievable thought of doing something special out of Carmel, the bay, and everything. It's the same kind of people you have in Le Mans. They are organizer, or through the year they were like, I love the word passion, because they had the passion for the automobile in the early days. And they had the thought of organizing Le Mans for the first time. Now, what is incredible about Le Mans, it's still a test bench for new technology like hydrogen engines and half electrical engine to support. But what is fantastic is the perenity of the whole story. It's already by itself a miracle. And I think a mistake, personally, I think it's nice to be all together with Henri, Lynn, and Jochen, and unfortunately not Tom. We live a period of time that was very exceptional, yes, but I think it's a mistake to live on the past. Everything has to change. Yes, there was a long straight at Le Mans where we were doing 380 kilometers per hour, and the record holder on speed is the WM at 407 kilometers per hour. But as it has been said, we have too much safety, the challenges and change. And I think, frankly, I think it's a mistake to think we have to live the present and the future. And clearly, the future for motor racing, there is the aspect of the climate aspect, the protection of the environment. We go in an unknown territory, and we don't know exactly where we are going, but we know we have to do something about it. So that's why Le Mans, once again, it's looking to use bioenergy, hydrogen, and so on. And that's the future of Le Mans. Being a sprint or not being a sprint, but it still is a development for the automobile. And clearly, if you, not 20 minutes, huh?
No.
Only 15.
I'm listening.
Okay. Well, clearly, there is a future for it, but the circumstances surrounding motor racing are different. And it's nice to evocate that because it has an influence on directly on our life, because I think the mobility was really the second thought on after having a house or having a job, or the mobility and that freedom is just unbelievable. And Le Mans was the engine, one of the engine, because in racing today, these thoughts are clearly printed to follow the future. But that freedom with a big F, it's it's been fantastic through the last under 30 years. The train was the first move into mobility after the horse. Cars occupied a huge place in our life.
I think when you say that, you talk about the future. That's why I'm going to ask you this, Henri. Because I'm sure even though you're on your farm, you pay a lot of attention to what happens at Le Mans. You could say, arguably, that the new regulations, LMDH, it's the unification of sports car rules. You'll run the same cars in America as you can run in France. It's a unique moment in sports car history. Do you think the next 2 or 3 years will, with the technology, is going to be a high point for sports cars at Le Mans? Because I mean, it's bringing all the manufacturers and all the drivers and together.
I don't understand very well.
So LMDH is obviously a very big direction and hypercar for Le Mans. What do you think this will do for the racing?
For the future?
For the future, yes.
You know, if you look at what happened actually, you know, it should be very interesting for manufacturers to come in Le Mans because if you look at the cars who will be in Le Mans next year and in the future, you know, it will be absolutely fantastic, you know, because Ferrari are coming back and Porsche, Audi, BMW, American cars are coming, and you know, it will be fantastic. So that means all manufacturers are very interested in Le Mans about the reputation of the race, and also they are interested to prove that they are the best with their technology, you know. That the history of Le Mans, you know, all manufacturers came in Le Mans to prove they are the best manufacturer in the world, you know, to win that race. It's so difficult. But the problem, already there will be a big problem next year, you know, and in the future. Because when I was speaking about equivalence between different technology in the same category, for the future, all the manufacturers are building cars with the same technical regulation. All the cars which will be in Le Mans next year are built with the same technical regulation. So that means you don't need equivalence between those cars because they are all built around the same technical regulation. But if you look at what will happen, they are speaking about a balance of performance, which is completely stupid, you know. If you look at what should arrive in Formula One, looking for instance that one driver is winning too often, you put less power to that driver during one race to another. If it's not enough, you put more weight in the car, and it's completely stupid. You know, it's like to put more weight or less power to Jim Clark or Stewart because they won too often in Formula One. So next year, if one car is quicker than the other with the same technical regulation, nobody knows why. It's just because they just built a better chassis, you know. So there is no way to handicap that car because it is going to win, you know. So if you look at what will happen, you know, with the FI between BMW, Porsche, Aston Martin, Ferrari, and so they will try to have a special balance of performance to be quicker for the next race, you know, which is completely stupid, you know. If you can imagine what will happen between those manufacturers with the FIA to try to get from one race to another something better for them, it is completely stupid, you know. So I worried about what will happen for the future, you know, because I think the actual regulation for hypercars is very good because all the manufacturers are coming back. but already there will be a big problem between them, you know.
Ah. Only when you've done it 33 years can you call it stupid. When you do the TV, you can't. That's a good answer. I'm going to ask this, though, on a lighter note. Did any of you ever go to Le Mans just for fun? Just to watch? Did you ever go, Lynn, to watch?
Well,
just to have a good time?
actually...
Or when you broke down, did you have a good time?
Well, I was just going to say, in 89, which was my first time there, and I was a racer. I wasn't there for fun, but I had a blast. Thanks, darling. Yeah, that was the year he won. Yeah. So, I mean, I have moments that year. I remember, they celebrate so much over there, and so we were having this parade before the race, and I had Gordon Spice and Ray Bellum on either side of me, and Hawaiian Tropic was one of the sponsors of the car.
God bless them.
And so there were these four ladies in crochet bikinis escorting the car, and both Gordon and Ray's eyes were obviously over there and watching the shaking of the body parts, and I'm looking at the fans and all that, but then all of a sudden they looked at me with this, oh my God, this moment of guilt that they shouldn't be doing that. And I said, don't worry. I said, when you come over to Daytona, I'm going to have Tom Cruise and Paul Newman escort us.
Yeah.
I mean, we had so much fun, and I had the big flower, wreath around me, and I threw it up into the fans. And I mean, so, but then it was serious racing, and I didn't really see anything else happening, So I came back in '91 with a very interesting team that wasn't prepared well at all, to the point that I never even suited up. There was no way we were going to run. So then I went out and I went into where the big, like carnival atmosphere, and they had these people jumping, doing the jumping out of the things, and all of a sudden I was like, these people are crazy. I got to go back to where the real people are, in the pits and be with the racers, because there's a lot of insanity and things that do go on out there. Yeah, so it is a great festive event, and of course the fans though are very. They're very passionate and all of that. So it's an extraordinary experience. It's like, I've been to a lot of different races around the world, and I still could say that there's nothing like Le Mans. And I just have to add, because you may not ask me another question, it is truly an honor for me to be sitting here, even though I never meant to disrupt your party. I just wanted to be a race car driver, and then I just wanted to be the best race car driver. And I did want to be amongst the best race car drivers. And so sitting here with these iconic guys is a huge honor for me. When I got to go to Le Mans '89, it was the highlight. So thank you. It's just...
And of course, Lynn is recently inducted into the Motorsport Hall of Fame. No? Weren't you? No, stop. What were you inducted into?
The Automotive Hall of Fame.
Did I say that? Automotive Hall of Fame. Okay.
Which is the whole automotive industry. It's not motorsport.
So that's what she got inducted into. Yeah.
I want to add one more thing, because this whole balance of performance and we are at a very special moment in sports car racing. I really believe that with this. Not just because of the unification, well, it is because of the unification, I think, between the European and what's happening in America, but the warning that Henri Sorda was making reference to is that we know that there's moments when all the OEMs decide to come in and they're going to platform and they're going to use this and all that, and then either they don't win or they don't like the balance of performance, and then they leave, and it's those independent teams that sometimes are the core of what motorsports is in sports car racing. So you have to be careful that you get so excited all these OEMs come in, they suck all the air out of it, they test all their technology, and then they leave, and then it's the independent teams that are there to continue on. And so, it's going to be exciting for the next couple of years, but then we'll see what happens after that. Yeah. So, be there to see all the excitement, but it may not necessarily sustain, because they come and then they go, So,
well, it'll kick it off at Daytona, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I just was having flashbacks. This isn't about me, but the bikinis played a big part in my role. not only did I have, imagine being you're 14 years old, I was this skinny little white English boy, and these are the guys that were my, I looked up to, and I'd see them they'd have their race suits rolled down, and they looked so strong. Jochen was amazingly strong, athletic human being. Jackie just looked good. Dad was strong, had hands like a plate of meat. I was terrified of these and honored to be around these guys. But the Hawaiian Tropic girls, Dad said to me, why don't you go off and take a scooter for a ride? And one of the girls said to me, I was 14, she said, can I come with you? So I'm like, okay. So she gets on the back of the scooter, and I go riding off for hours. And I didn't know, I couldn't talk, I didn't know what to do. I felt like Dad had not given me a manual on how to operate this. Not the scooter, I was fine on the scooter. Anyway.
You should have asked us, the older drivers. We knew.
Yeah. I basically should have left it to the professionals. But anyway, it changed my life. No, I mean, one of the, you both of you, because we're getting near the end of the time, is I asked you at the beginning what Le Mans meant, how you describe it, but obviously we've been very fortunate in the last few years to have, movies come out like Ford versus Ferrari. I know they're making another Ferrari movie now. We had obviously the Steve McQueen movie back in the day. Do you think pop culture has captured, I'll ask you first, Jochen, the spirit of Le Mans? Because Dad had people coming up to him going, Le Mans, I get it now. I watched Ford versus Ferrari. What do you think about the way Le Mans is portrayed?
Oh, it's the sex appeal of Le Mans has, of course, grown, open sky. It's fantastic. And it's got some appeal which is a bit deeper than just driving. But coming back to driving, why are there 3 drivers today and 2 drivers nowadays? The cars, first of all, were much more comfortable in a certain way. You had padded seats, and the cars were not as stiff and as hard as the more modern ones. And the cornering forces were higher, and so on and so on. So physically, it is more demanding now, and the cars are very hard. So just the movement. Fortunately, the roads are smoother, but it's harder to drive. The braking power is amazing, and so on, and all this works on your innards a lot more, and it wears you out easier. And when you have more physical comfort in the car, you can drive a bit longer too. We had 2 or 3 hours often, in the cars, and it was manageable. But you don't really want to do that in the very modern cars. By the way, you can be glad that, Lynn, that you're not German, because otherwise you would not be a driver, you would be a driveress, of course. We changed everything, all these sort of expressions and coining new words.
When I raced at Nürburgring in Germany, they called me Brunhilde.
They called you what?
Brunhilde.
Anyway.
Oh, well.
So, yeah.
Before we've got time for a couple of questions in a minute, but Jackie, because you will anyway, is Pebble Beach, we're here, you look at the old cars, you look at the future, anything you want to say about being in Pebble Beach? Or anything you want, I don't care.
I like that.
Yeah, it's whatever you want.
Well, I like that. I'm thinking about the destiny, in a way, of all of us. We have different stories, but for everyone it's a different story. I'm listening to the enthusiasm of Lynn or Jochen, and of course the great Henry I, Henry II, no, Henry I. It's fascinating because we're supposed to have dreams, and I must admit, you have to know, when I was young, probably 8 years long, I was taken by my father at the Belgium Grand Prix to see Fangio winning the Grand Prix and so on. And frankly, I asked him not to go back to motor racing because I thought it was really boring. Really boring. And you have to know that the strange thing about destiny and history is I really believe I wanted to be a gardener or a gamekeeper. And honestly, it's far away from motor racing. It's totally unexpected in a way. And that's why the destiny is a real mysterious. I must admit also, I came to motor racing by accident, and that kind of accident makes you smile, but I was always last at school. And really I had difficult times with my parents, especially at the exam times. It was not funny at all. I used to be sitting by the window near the radiator because it's really comfortable in winter, you know. And as I was a good guy and I didn't disturb anyone, I had a sort of peaceful life, except in July, as I said. The interesting thing is my parents were really worried, and probably as you all are, about the future of your kids. And it occupied your mind a lot of times, and most of the time to know what. And mine were saying, what are we going to do with that guy? Because the teachers were really lovely. They were saying, oh, your son is so clever, but he's so lazy. Oh, it's really the comment who achieve you. You know, definitely when they say he's lazy and so intelligent, it's a desperate case. The question is, I think we are all made for something, I believe. We just have to have the luck to find out what it is. Unfortunately, for my parents, it was not. When I start racing successfully, and because the first stage is to have the parents accepting that your kids does something dangerous. I mean, that's the most difficult part in a career. But anyhow, as it came like that, used to see me last when I had few podium in motorcycle. They were happy. Unfortunately, for them, I went into car racing as well, and they really had a hard time because in those days racing was risky, as you all know, and they have suffered a lot. They really suffer a lot to all these years. They had to live with me when there were no information, no little TV. So I really caused them so much fear that every Monday they were sick. But that made me think also when you have this sort of period, this sort of question in life, although if your kids do things so are not exactly what you want, the difficulty is to accept it and to accept that someone does something different than you. It's to encourage the young kids who wants to go into motor racing. Let them go if they are able to do well or not even so well, to encourage them to be happy, to have, to see the children happy in their life, I think is the most important thing. Although we can say Jochen and Lynn and Henri, frankly, we are survivors from that era because we spoke about guardrails, we had straw balls, the protection were straw, catch fencing on tracks, for example. Henri was the quickest one officially at Spa with an average of 263 kilometers per hour on one lap on a 13-kilometer track, or is a road course like Le Mans, that's on the street, with houses, electrical pole, fencing for the horses and the cows and the fields. And we all did it, and we we had a really enjoyable life. And I think the success is probably the human aspect, to meet people who are able to take you up and to give you a hand to turn right or turn left, because destinies are totally different depending for the sort of traffic light you have. But yes, I'm happy to be alive, to share this moment with these talented drivers, and the human aspect, really, of what a human is able to do, whatever it's going around the globe solo or climbing at Capitan like Otolf, that is great climber, who did El Capitan alone without safety, without anything like us in a way, or climbing mountains. We have plenty of, we need to be admirer of this kind of people who goes to the limit.
Well said. Well, we are running to the end of our time. We got time for one question, not for Jackie. Anyone else have a...
I love it.
No. Does anyone have a question while we've got these guys? Whoops, sorry.
Hi, I'd like to find
You're
out...
going to go for Jackie, I know you are. No.
Anybody.
No, not me. I'm not allowed.
Can you describe
I
what
use
it's
my-
like driving 200 miles an hour in the rain and night?
Which one? Anyone?
What was that?
200 miles an hour in the rain at night. Plus, what's it like?
Why not? No, look, I mean, obviously the cars are built for speed, and the tires are made for heavy rain and things like that. So, of course, you have to take it with a grain of salt, and you know the road, and you know the puddles, and you know the dangers of various places on the tracks. So there you take it a bit easier. But then you do the speed the car allows you to do. And so it's a normal thing. Now the Formula One, they're too fast. They build up such a wall of water behind the car because they suck up too much water from the road. And that makes it even more dangerous. I mean, it was bad. The visibility was very bad nowadays. And, but you could still drive a little bit offset and things like that. So that's what you made of it. I mean, Jackie was the rain master for a long time. He was fantastic. And so when I looked at it as a young guy, racing-wise, excuse me, and you know, I learned a lot just watching them. And it was quite intriguing, often, what you could do. But, you know, to go down Le Mans, sometimes you had these patches of fog drifting across the road. And that was something you saw, and you didn't know whether it was an exploded engine, it was oil smoke, which could have been, or whether it was just a drifting small low cloud which came across. And so you eased off, you know, from 380 or 370, you eased off and you only did 350 or 340. And then you entered the thing and you're hoping nothing was in it. And so this was obviously always a bit of a adrenaline racer, but you know. But another thing I wanted to say just before we come to the end, when people, you know, at forums like this or whatever, they said, Jochen, what was the highlight of your life? What was the best thing you had in racing? What was the pinnacle of it? I said, it's that I'm still here, what Jackie just said, that we are still here to talk about things like that, to talk to you all and so on. And that's, and that to me, you cannot take that as the very best. That's a poor life if it would be like that. You know, you have to take it, you know, and there's ups and downs. That's the way it is and so on. But you all know that because also our private lives don't always warrant, you know, the greatest joys. Sometimes we all have troubles with whatever. So that's something we have to live with and appreciate when we go through it and we sit here and, you know, what Jackie said, I can fully underline and say he's so right. You know, it is a nice, rich life which we lived, and so on. So that's good. Thank you.
Well, a huge thank you. I mean, this could be a 6-hour seminar, and I wish it was. Every one of these guys, we have the chance to talk. Katie said I could promote my little podcast I'm doing. I'm doing something called Life with Legends, and it's where I sit down with all these heroes, and I've done my father and Brian Redmond, and I've got to put a couple of days aside for Jackie, and we're going to do it. But it's really just, you know, these stories and more, and talking about it, so you can find it on any podcast platform now, Life with Legends. What a treat to have these guys. They're going to be around all weekend. If you get the chance to talk to them, I certainly would. They are our history, motorsport history, and they're living and breathing, as you just said, Jochen, and it's a privilege for all of us. So a round of applause for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.